And welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of Comfy Pants Wednesday Exotics Talk. I am Crash, your host. We are live, and we've got to set up some nice music, some new music. Yeah, it's just fun. Just had an interesting week this week. I was going to share it with you guys. I see some people have already started to arrive. Again, I can't see who arrives, so if you guys want a shout out, if you guys want some recognition, say hi or hello in the chat, and I will be more than happy to give you a great shout out because I really appreciate my fans being here. So what are we going to do today? Well, we got a list of new types of music. I was asked to mix things up, and I was secretly asked a certain style of music, so I contacted another person, asked them if they would like that as well. So I hope you guys like today's program. And is today's program brought to you by anybody? Nope. Me, myself, and I. So I got to work on getting some sponsors. Ben's Pet says, hello, how are you? I'm doing well. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're having a great day today. I see a mantis in your thing there, in your little picture there. So anyways, what is today's going to be about? Well, today we've got a contest to announce, which we will do shortly after our first song. And I have some things I'd like just to touch on, just to talk about randomly, because it's Comfy Pants Wednesday, so that's what we do here. So without further ado, we're going to play our first song. And then I can start sharing the show and getting it up and running, because, people get busy. They don't realize it's Wednesday. I know a lot of people can't make it on Wednesday, but that's them. So anyways, our first song coming up is Headlights by Sven Carlson.
The times, bitter taste of your lies. No one got what they came for. So you think it can cheat? Give us all we can eat without something to live for. Want to be part of something. I am afraid of losing my mind. Headlights are blinding me, I can't find nothing to care about, no one to dream about. Generations of hate, sick and tired of waiting, nothing will ever change here. All is destined to be, we will not ever be free from this prison you built here. Want to be heard by someone. I am afraid of losing my mind. Headlights are blinding me, I can't find nothing to care about, no one to dream about. Can't understand a thing. What will the future bring? to dream about. Can't understand a thing. What will the future bring?
And welcome back, everybody. I see some people come in. I've got Spider Mom. I've got Ben's Pets. And if you guys hear a little voice in the back, is because then you guys know I do not live alone. I do have my brother here with me, so he is in the background screaming at the computer. I've told him a couple times I was doing this, and he doesn't care. So, anyways, what are we going to do today? Well, we've got plenty on the plate. And our first thing we're going to talk about is 5 for 5. It is a contest I've come up with. It's got 5 rules, and it's basically to bring awareness to how not easy, because when you restrict down to a budget and a very small budget, it can get kind of, how do you say, it can get kind of hectic. But what 5 of 5 is basically you're putting together an enclosure for basically an entire enclosure for whatever animal you think of. There's no restrictions to which animal you wish to put this for. But basically, it's for less than $5 or less than 50 kroner or 50 or €5. Sorry, I don't know how to. For those in the UK, I don't know how to put that into British pound. I apologize. But everybody pretty much in the EU knows what a euro is. So 50 kroner basically equals about €5, and €5 equals about $5. So and it's basically there's 5 simple rules to go along with that, and the rules are: it has to be practical, it has to be ethical. So you can't just slap something together and be like, it's for this, and it's like, no, that's a bit too small for that, or whatever, it has to have like a water dish and all that. So it has to be very ethical. It has to be very practical. Hold on one second. Let me bring up the rules before I mess this up. I can't think of things on top of my head. I'm sorry. I'm so horrible about things like this. But I did have this written down. And of course, when I want to do something doesn't want to load up. Of course, that's what it would be. Hold on one second. And of course, it has to be less than, like I said, 50 kroner or €5 or $5, depending on where you're at. And it must be something that the average person could do, put together. Hello, Hutker. I see Hutker. My good gaming buddy, Hutker. He's here for the music. I'm just going to tell you that right now. He's here for the music. And of course, the price of the substrate does not count. And the reason why is because for about 50 kroner, I can buy 2 liters of material, substrate, and for the fraction that I'm going to use, it wouldn't even be worth the accounting. So up to 2 liters, the substrate does not count. So after that, then it counts. Could you have 3 liters and then the 2 liters off? Absolutely. That's part of the, of course, that's part of the rules. So it is 5 for 5. And people are like, well, what do I win? For one, you're going to win bragging rights over everybody because, it's going to be an open voter. People are going to post it on their Instagram. They're going to post it here. And hopefully I can round up somebody to have an actual, become a judge. But since the announcement, you will have 2 weeks to get this taken care of. You'll have 2 weeks to actually do something. And I heard my cats get into something, so it's going to be interesting. I heard something loud banging in the background, and it sounded almost plastic-like. So I'm pretty sure they found something to get into, and they're batting it around. So I apologize for the background noise there. But anyways, the whole thing is basically, and of course, oh yeah, get back. I'm sorry, I lost track of my thoughts there for a brief moment. People wanted to know what they were going to win. For one, bragging rights over the next guy, and 2, if I can, I'm going to see if I can get some stickers. The stickers are pretty expensive from my end, from the sites that I have. So I got to talk to some YouTubers and find out where they're getting their stickers at and where they're getting their stickers made, and see about getting some stickers done. So basically, because of the whole thing, it's supposed to be on the budget, on the cheap. And the thing is, you're going to be judged on aesthetics, you're going to be judged on creativity and practicality. So if you find this beautiful large aquarium for cheap or for free, and all you have to do is add some silicone, that doesn't count. The price on that doesn't count. But is an average person going to be able to put that in their home? You have to think about that. So is it going to be practical? And is it good to be, of course, like I said, it's got 5 rolls. It's 5 for 5. And then you got the 3 things you're going to be judged on, which is, like I said, creativity, practicality, and aesthetics. If it doesn't look good. Spider Mom goes, challenge accepted. We've got people are talking about how they got tricked. I see how it is. But yeah, with that out of the way, we've got our next song up. Asher, I just totally butchered that. For some reason, my mind is just not focused, and I've been trying to focus. Probably because I haven't been up for that long. My hours have been really flipped on my sleeping schedule, and unfortunately, I can't get back to normal. And I've only been starting to get 4 hours of sleep. Now it's trickling down to 3 hours of sleep. And yeah, it's my insomnia is kicking my butt. But without further ado, we bring in our next song, and that is Tell Me Something New by Wellness.
Why won't you tell me something new? You waited for someone to save you and left me all alone. I want to tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall, but we only learned one thing. It's the longest night of my life, and the longest goodbye I've cried. I've tried away into the night, and I contemplate for a while. When you love someone, you just can't stop. You spin the wheels until they drop. Don't you wish I would have been someone else? I want to feel your gap without making a mess of you. Won't you tell me something new? You waited for someone to save you and left me all alone. I want to tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall, but the only hurt was way, and the strongest way I can say, I wish you all the best I can. That I stop myself for a while. I'm saying things I don't believe. The facts rising up in me. You want to tell me something new. You waited for someone to save you and left me all alone. I want to tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall, but the only hurt was me.
welcome back. I'm here. So many people messaging me like, "We can't make it. I'm sorry." I'm like, no, it's all right. Oh, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk about our new guest coming up on Friday. I hope he's going to make it. I'm actually hoping he come in and peek in and say hi. If he doesn't, if he's not able to, of course, that's fine. We're in the middle of discussing them coming on, and I'm not sure if they want to be announced, but anyway, anywho, Ophi's Spider. I will, if you're not subscribed to my Instagram, I highly suggest it, or you can ask Spider Mom for the rules. I've already sent her the rules and everything. So Spider Mom, if you want, you can actually share. But also, if anybody wants to come up here and talk and have a chit chat and enjoy the evening, as I first say, I was going to actually enjoy my moment with some mulled wine, but I was really focused on getting the podcast up and running without issues, which actually worked today. Yay! Oh, let's bring that deserves something. That deserves something. Let's do this. Yeah, I gotta give myself a pat on the back for that one. And of course, now I've lost my playset. There you go. Oh my goodness! So I'm actually pretty excited to be here. Like I said, I finally got everything kind of went in smoothly. The transition was nice. But anyways, no, like I said, oh my goodness. Well, like I said, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy my fans are here. Holy crap. I'm so happy that the people that can make it today and can make it right now, or I'm actually very happy that you're here. Like I said, the podcast is about an hour and a half long, mixed in with some music and some talk. And if there's anybody who would like to come join me, you're more than happy to. I'm more than happy to share my link. I'm going to do that now. Let's see. There we go. And of course, yeah, there it goes. Yay! Hudker's like, yay! And of course, I know Zelig is here as well. I know he came on because he, the quality of the podcast. He is a technician, so the quality of the podcast is kind of on his shoulders a little bit. So he wanted to make sure thoroughly, even though today is pretty much his day off. He's kicked back, relaxed at his house. So what are we doing? Well, we're going to talk about certain things like how to make sure your tarantula does not escape their enclosure. There's some couple of things. The reason why I want to talk about this is because I almost lost my, believe it or not, I almost lost my tripe. I've noticed she's starting to chew through the toppings, and I've never seen her up there. But the holes on the screen are starting to get a little bit bigger, and they're starting to bend. Now, one thing about Exoterras, if you hold up the screen up, you can actually see in the mesh where they're starting to work their way out. And I'm like, okay. So what I did was I had taken it out, and I had a spare on me, thank goodness. And I was changing it out, and of course, she was going to make a break for it. Tripes are pretty gnarly. They're pretty spastic. I love them to death. I love her to death. She's actually a wonderful tarantula to keep. She's very energetic, actually. She's probably just like my curly hair. She's got to chase the stream of water, but she also likes to chase food. She's one of the few that I can't give her pre-kills. I actually have to make sure that the animal, the food is living. Also, later on, we'll also be talking about the DWAs. We don't have those here in Sweden. Our rules are very lax compared to that of the UK. But we don't have the danger of invasive species, much like the UK. Unlike the UK, I mentioned if a rattlesnake got out in the UK, it could actually survive. I mean, your winters get cold, but not that cold. And there's some rattlers that could live up in the mountains. So I can imagine it would wreak havoc on the environment, and that's probably one of the reasons why you have such a strong hold on your rules. Whereas here in Sweden, we just don't have that threat. What we do have, though, is a couple of rules that are not reinforced, and again, we'll touch on those a bit later in the show. But I kind of wanted to touch on that. So, how do we submit our entry and keep track? And with who does what the challenge. That's why I was saying 2 weeks. You guys have 2 weeks to get your enclosures together, to find, build, and go around. I've got to find a judge. I've got to find somebody that is actually qualified to accept, and that person cannot be participating in the challenge. That's my next step, is to find somebody during this 2-week period while people are trying to get their enclosures together. Which means that if today's the release, the 10th of March is when everything has to be turned in. But again, I have to find somebody who can turn that into. Hopefully I can participate. If I cannot find somebody to participate, then I would be the judge. And I don't want to be the judge because I'm hosting, and it would just be like, I can already see the drama. And I'd rather avoid that at the moment. So I am trying to find somebody on the outside. Hopefully somebody that owns like a pet store or something. As soon as I do, I will let you guys know. And then all submissions will be put in. But the submissions will be turned in by the 10th of March. That much is for sure. And again, send it to you on Facebook. Oh, okay. Send it to you. All right. You're talking to Ophi there. I was like, I don't have Facebook. So again, like I said, I'm trying to find somebody who would be a really good judge. I was going to ask Scott, but I think Scott's actually going to participate, so that wouldn't be fair to anybody or nor him. And so, like I said, I got to find somebody. Scott's Animal Adventures unfortunately said he couldn't do it because of the type of animals he would like to build enclosure for. They actually require more, and it's the substrate cost, to be honest. So unfortunately he can't, so maybe he can be the judge, but he does suffer from anxiety, a lot of anxiety, so I don't want to put that kind of weight on his shoulders. So yeah, like I said, it's something that I'm going to have to sit down with and find somebody to do so with. I think it'll be really fun. I think it'd be really great. I notice people are starting to drop like flies. They're getting tired of me talking. I see that. And I apologize. It's the weather is actually warm outside, so now it's like going in and out of cold air and warm air, cold air and warm air. So my throat's a little gruff. But without further ado, let's play another song, and I will sort some stuff out. Like an idiot.
If I let you go, it'll be alright. Only goes to show you never can tell how it's gonna be. Why am I here? Why do I feel like an idiot? I can see clear. I will not give in to the bitterness. Thoughts are crowding in my mind. I wish that I could leave them all behind. Take me away from here. I don't want to spend another year stupid and insincere. Never again will I be struck with fear. Yeah. I cannot sleep. Am I afraid of the shadows? Am I in too deep? Chasing a ghost in a bad dream. Thoughts are clouding in my mind. I wish that I could leave them all behind. Take me away from here. I don't want to spend another year insincere. Never again will I be struck with fear. Take me away from here. I don't want to spend another year stupid and insincere. Never again will I be struck with fear. And take me away from here. I don't want to spend another year stupid and insincere. Never again will I be struck with fear. I don't believe it anyway. This time I'm not an idiot.
Hey, Scott's Animal Adventures. How's it going?
Hi, sorry about that.
It's fine. What do you mean? Sorry about that. I left the link for people to play and come and join and talk. So
Awesome.
everybody, is the music okay? I've tried to fiddle with the some of the controls to make it sound better, get the quality up. Stefan Harp, welcome. And it's like Happy Wednesday. Yes, it's Happy Hump Day. I'm very happy to be here. Unfortunately, I don't have my mulled wine, so I'm a little more self-conscious than normal. So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm tired. As I said in the beginning, during the evening, afternoon time, so it's just like, and I would love to play my cat. It's like the one that's meowing outside my door who wants in really desperately, and I'm going to kill the person outside my door that's allowing him to do that because he knows that he knows that's not a good thing. Because he knows I'm actually live, and so now you guys get to hear an annoying cat back there until I can get play another song. I gotta love my brother. I just want to kill him sometimes. So what are you up to? I saw. Oh, by the way, I was gonna say I saw Happy Snook Snoodles.
Yes. Which one did you see? Was it the boa or the corn snake?
I think it was the boa that I saw.
Yeah.
Not really exactly sure. I was just really it was just like you were showing a very happy snake at the time, and I said, "Oh, it's a happy Snook Snoodle."
Oh yeah. I mean, I got new isopods for the boas viv. Same species as what I've got in colony, but just while my colony is too small to really make use of it, I just got a starter to see what another supplier was like. Supplier called Isopod King. I didn't do an unboxing. The reason for that is compared to other suppliers I've used, they were really keen to get feedback from me and that, so I gave them some honest feedback privately. Everything was alive, there was no problems. It was just the form factor of the packing and the way that it was done. There were a couple of things that they could tweak, and I obviously didn't want to give anyone sort of bad press. A lot of people can take constructive stuff negatively, especially when it's not aimed at them themselves. So I went and spoke to the people that run Isopod King, and they were really good about it. They weren't offended or anything. All the isopods seemed to be settling in well in the boa, and while I was putting them in, I just had him out sitting around my neck because while he's small, he's not gonna do any harm or anything. So I thought I'd make use of the opportunity. So it was just chilling.
Oh, I heard. No, I saw something very interesting. It's an old video. It's a very, very old video. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you go look this video up, remember, I believe it's between 2 or 3 years old. So just keep that in mind. And the lady that was actually in it, she turned out to be okay. Of course, she's going to have some stitches, but I believe it was a 16-foot reticulated python. And of course, there was a gentleman, Dingo something or other, another fellow YouTuber. It just happened to pass by this video, and he was talking about the three different stages for 3 ticks. And he goes, to be honest, there's actually 4. And I have experience from the zoo, so I had handlers that had way more experience around me to help me, and I was more of an assistant to them. And so when it came to the big animals like that, we'd always have 2 assistants, but 2 absolute handlers. So there's basically 4 people there at almost all times, especially with the much bigger
Definitely.
animals. And of course, this woman had 3, the guy that was filming, and then another assistant, and plus herself. But the first thing that I noticed immediately was the top. It had the enclosure was opened and closed from the top. And for everybody who owns snakes would know that if you're feeding an animal like that, you're coming from the top. So the feeding reaction that this animal had was just astounding, and how quick she she got into big trouble. And now he was talking about how because this brought to mind when I saw this, because you were saying how people take constructive criticism as negativity. And so I believe that's an initial reaction, because nowadays nobody has really good constructive criticism unless you're a professional, or unless you're deep into the hobby like yourself. People, there's too much crap that goes on. It's like immediately, bam, this is horrible. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't tell me. You could say that's a horrible thing, but tell me what I've done wrong, or tell me, give me something to help fix the problem. If you can't help solve the problem, you are part of the problem, kind of thing. And so I think people have this initial reaction when they hear constructive criticism to make it take it negatively. And this gentleman, as you put it, you did it very well. You didn't blast anybody. You're like, look, this could have been better. And but you didn't go on your social media and on your groups and say, look what they did, and this is how bad it was. And it's like, so I have mad respect for you for that. But speaking of pythons, and boas with you, because I know reptiles is where your heart is. Isopods just slightly below that, but they're pretty much even. But no, she the first reaction she had was she didn't panic, which was the biggest thing that I've learned from my days in the zoo. Is you don't panic. If you get into a really bad situation, you just don't panic. And the second the second part was she didn't let the tail wrap around her shoulder, because she as Dingo was putting it, as soon as that tail gets around, you're not getting it off. As soon as it locks, you're done. So that's why you have to unwrap the tail first. Because the thing with the serrated edge, basically the mouth part, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot, and you're going to bleed a lot, but it's not going to do the damage as much as that tail and that body's going to do, because you cannot, there's really nobody strong enough or stronger than an animal that's just made of pure muscle and cartilage. I'm sorry.
With my boa, I mean, the second he gets past, I'd say 4-inch girth, maybe even 3-inch girth for some people. But the second you get past that certain level of muscle density, you seriously need to consider how you're approaching that interaction, because even the way that Rocky is now, he can put pressure. And obviously, if anyone knows, you've got the 2 blood vessels in your neck, and when you press on them, I'm sure people have done this in school or whatever when they were thinking they're cool, but you press on it, and it does make you start getting that pump and that lightheadedness and that. And even now, if I am doing something in that, and he kind of sits in a certain position, it's very light pressure, but it does have that effect. And I'll readjust and I'll work with him, and he's completely calm. He's not doing it out of any kind of malice, but you've got to think about these things, because the likes of a corn snake, etc., nothing in their DNA and in their natural behavior would tell them to loop a tail round their body and kind of hold on. But when you've got something that is predominantly in trees, going through hard to traverse terrain, and is using a lot of its muscle to hold on, even if it's not trying to do you damage, it's still a risk. And with my boa, there's 3 stages to handle it. Your first stage is you see the boa in the viv. So what I do is I kind of move while I'm outside the viv, kind of calmly. I'm not trying to antagonize him, and I just see if he's tracking me. And then if he's not, and he's kind of just relaxing, I'll open the viv, and I will very slowly approach him at a point where I'm behind his head in the bottom third of his body. So he's got to put in effort to turn around and face me. I will touch him and sort of gently just let him know that I'm there. I'll put my fingers under his body and lift up. And that normally gets him to the point where he will start to move. And a good sign when you're handling like a constrictor and that is to have the snake move away calmly, not like it's trying to like get away and run away, but to just sort of do their thing. And then when he's in a position where he can't wrap around and hurt himself, if I was to pull him up and he gets his tail caught or anything like that, I will then handle him, and I'll handle him in my arms and on my hand for a bit and see how he is and his behavior. And if he's perfectly calm, I will then move to having him on my shoulders or on my neck and that, while I'm doing something else, or just that interaction. And it is really just that gradual process and that respect that you have for the animal that makes a good handling session or a negative one. And it's not just for your safety, it's the snake and the snake's mental view of you. If you're constantly just taking it out and doing what you have to do, putting it back, then the snake's not going to have any kind of attachment. And there's this whole thing of snakes don't get attached to their owners, but a snake's going to be more tolerant if you give it a pleasant experience and don't give it any reason to be at any kind of alert.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with that. No, we like as Dingo was talking about, we learned 3 different stages when I was with the zoo at the time, but as Dingo pointed out, actually there's 4. But what the main thing is when they're sleeping, we always tried to get to them when they were sleeping, because when they're a little groggy, when you wake them up, they're not immediately alert. You have such a large animal, their predator ratio is very small. The South American species had jaguars. Was it Yeah, it's jaguars.
Yeah.
And pumas, of course. Whereas African, there's a lot of Asian. There's still a lot more, and so that's why you see one of the reasons why it's suggested that you see a lot of the larger snakes, the restrictors, in the South American tropical areas in the Americas, because of the lack of what do you call it, the predators to keep them small.
I think the other reason that the South American snakes are generally calmer and handle better is because they have less of the predators, so they're not naturally kitted out to just defend themselves. Whereas if you've got lions, cheetahs, hyenas, an African rock python is born angry because it has to be to survive, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's very, very true. It's instinctive. I think it's funny. I understand there's a conversation. Ellie hasn't been feeling good. She believes it's due to allergies, and I hope that's what it is, and I hope feels better very very soon. But we were talking about how it's instinctive for rock pythons to be angry all the time, and then I see Ellie say, "That's all I seem to be doing." I was like, "You're angry all the time." Um, but why don't we take a short break and listen to music? Like I said, today's Comfy Pants Wednesday, and I love this conversation, actually, this back and forth, so let's keep that going. Our next song is Take Control of Your Own Life.
I went by your house, what a big mistake. But for a while I thought that I wouldn't break. I need something else to clear my head. Someone to tell me how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to say. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Without any thought, I keep moving on. I don't even care if my soul is gone. So many words that I should have said. Not concerned about how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to say. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Nothing in life is good. Tired and misunderstood. I would fight if I could. If I believed I should. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to say. Take control of your own life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to say. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life.
And welcome back. 1 second. I wanted to finish my statement as I was talking. The song was like, no, but we're gonna end now. It's like, no. Amago's Exotics Radio Podcast. I'm guessing no one is here from Podbean, right? Eric has actually been showing up, and that's about it. So, it's probably because I don't hang out on Podbean much anymore. Mainly because Podbean is, Podbean. The place got pretty toxic pretty quick. It was like very few podcasters there weren't out to verbally abuse, put down, or focus on the bad things in life. And it was just like, you know what? I'm just done with this. And then, of course, you know how Podbean handles their site. So I'm just like, yeah, no. Yeah, I know you miss Eric. And they miss you guys. They really do miss you, Ahmad. So definitely, if you get a chance, go to Podbean, go check out the Old Man's podcast, and go hang out with him and say hello, because they do. They miss you, and they always tell me to tell you that they miss you. So to get back to what we're talking about, the restrictors and pythons. So the three modes that I learned was there was sleeping mode, which that's generally when we love to handle the snakes because they weren't as alert in the beginning, and usually the next day after they've eaten is usually when we go in there for cleanup. Um, and then the other one was alertness, their inquisitive nature, because snakes are very inquisitive. They, for some strange reason, they've got to get into anything and everything. Um, we would even put in boxes for safely, of course, for them to investigate. Because if they've got some sort of a stimulation that actually help them stay and remain calm. And then there was hunger when they were hungry, and believe it or not, there's actually a fourth one, and that's when they're very guarded. But we try to really stay away from getting them to become guarded. We try to give them a life where they can actually live in a relaxed environment. Because if they're relaxed, then we're relaxed. If it goes south from there, then it's we're talking about an animal that's 3, maybe even 4 meters long. I mean, depending on the size and the age of the animal. So, like I said, it can get really hectic very quickly. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, especially from my point of view, I always think the younger you can get the snake, the better, because you will master your understanding of that snake so much more when it's a child and when it's young, because a baby snake is so much more emotive and so much more forthcoming with what mode and what it's thinking. And also, a lot of the time, the younger the snake is, the more defensive it will be. And as much as I think rescue is an absolutely brilliant thing, and it can really save some of these animals, I think I personally would not want to be the person taking in a 9 foot, 10 foot Burmese python that's had a bad life before me, because although they are intelligent, it's very, very difficult to undo the damage that was done. And you've got a snake that can do you a lot of like damage and that. So I think in terms of constrictors, I would say it's probably one of the only snakes that I would say to either get rescued young or to buy from a breeder, um, rather than getting an adult snake, because unless you know it's just a rehome and it had a good owner before you could be opening yourself up to all manner of hell, you know.
Well, the thing is, here's the problem with zoos. We get the animals once they're too big. We do not know how well they were taken care of prior.
Hmm.
We do have here in Sweden. We do have rescue centers that are specifically made for reptiles, amphibians, and of course arachnids. Of course, but arachnids really they're easier to find homes for, to be honest. Uh, the problems we have here in Sweden, and I'll probably touch on this on Friday, um, with our guest if they're going to be here, which is going to be a hope and a prayer. I hope they come. I'm really hoping. I'm really excited to have them on the show. But the thing is with them is they're usually seized by people who are doing illegal things.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't have
Over here,
we,
it's the same.
we don't have the restrictions that says okay, here's the thing. With snakes and reptiles and amphibians that can become invasive, it is illegal to sell. So what they do is it's not considered an individual sale. It's called a rehousing. So it's you're paying a rehousing fee. So you're not selling the animal. You see the
Yeah,
problem?
yeah,
So that's how they're getting away with some of the hotter, more dangerous animals like the cobras. They're not really. regulated, they're not enforced, because here in Sweden we have a belief: if you're the one that's going to be handling these animals, if you're going to be the one that's buying these animals, that's on you. But they, like I said, the invasive species. So cobras aren't really invasive here. It's way too cold. So it's okay to sell, but you cannot go without. You cannot. There's basically a law that states it's not illegal to sell, but you can't go to a third party to sell. So basically, it has to be an individual. It's a forced individual sale. And again, it's not regulated. And of course, it's on you if you're gonna if you're gonna have these dangerous animals, then And I can't think of an owner of a highly venomous creature that goes out of the way just to neglect their animals, especially the price that you pay for these animals. You pay a very, very pretty penny, so you go out of your way to make. I hate to use I hate cursing, but you're gonna make damn sure the animal's well taken care of and locked away and put away properly. But that doesn't always include pythons and other exotic pets, such as your pythons and your boas. Now, and of course, your corn snakes and your hognose, all of them, again, they can be sold through a third party. So when, say, a drug dealer gets caught, we're just going to use that as an example. Generally, most people who keep pets or pythons are not drug dealers. They're actually people who have come here and are either illegal selling or illegally staying. And selling means that they don't have a license and they're not paying tax, and they got caught selling way too many to not be a business kind of thing. And all of their collection is going to be confiscated. Well, then they give it to a licensed person. As soon as they are rescued and they're given to a rescue, that animal can never be sold again. So basically, you're going to go in for an adoption, but you can never sell that animal. You cannot charge a rehousing fee. And that leaves the rescues to be way, way overpopulated. Now, with the zoos, after a certain size, the zoo will take over. So basically, if you have a king cobra that is a full length, then the rescue cannot handle that kind of a hot animal at that size. So the zoo will take over in that case. And that goes along with also the pythons and the boas. If there are certain, and then of course anacondas as well. If they're deemed a certain size, they're considered a complete danger. And so you're not going to find people who have enough room in their house, which you have to provide. You have to provide massive amounts. Basically, if you have a reticulated python that is about 3 meters long, and for people in the US who don't know what meters is, I believe a meter is the same as a yardstick. So basically 9 foot plus. And then you're I don't know, basically at that point you have to donate a room to them, and you have to prove to the government that you can actually handle this animal and take care of this animal for the rest of its life. So that means you have to take in consideration the rest of their size. And you cannot give this animal away. You cannot you can't be like, oh, it got up to, it's no longer 9, it's now 12, or it's basically 4 meters. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have the room for it anymore. You can't just give it back. If you do, you're going to face a very, very heavy fine, and you'll never be able to adopt an animal again. You'll be on the blacklist. This is not going to happen anymore, because they believe that you knew when you first adopted it that you were going to be able to take care of it, and you knew everything that it required up to the point of its death. So, and then on top of that, if the animal dies in your hands at that point after a rescue, then you're going to be investigated. Was it a natural death? Half the time, actually, unfortunately, it is, because when you get an animal that has been in such a mill or something like that, their health isn't really the best. So they understand that, but they need that on paper. So it's highly regulated. As soon as the government steps in through a rescue, it's a whole different ballgame. And then, of course, at a certain size, the zoo is going to step in. And the zoo has to be able to keep the animal. You don't get to turn an animal down because, well, you simply don't have enough room. So unfortunately, zoos are starting to get a little overpopulated on their snakes and reptilian side, because it's not just snakes. You're also talking about monitors. You're talking about at one point in time there was a Komodo dragon, which is illegal to have in Sweden because it's considered an endangered pet without proper licensure. Uh, but anyways, yeah, it was a whole mess at that point, and again, the zoo can't get rid of this unless the animal can be sent back in good care and in good faith.
Yeah.
And then that would be going to another zoo. And that's generally with the much, much, much bigger snakes. That's generally what happens is they go back to another zoo somewhere in the EU that can take them in. But we had some pretty big ones when I was in doing my thing. We had some really big ones. We had a particular retic that just everything was food to her. But when we first got her, she was so emaciated, it wasn't even funny. Because she was so emaciated, she also had infections everywhere. She had mites everywhere. The poor thing. I just felt so bad for her. But of course, we brought her back to health, and then after that, everything was just anything that moved was food. So she was very dangerous, especially after she started gaining the weight because she was already.
It's
She
so
was.
incredible the way they can bounce back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's surprising how much they can go through and just bounce back. Like it was within a year or two, like nothing happened. It was like, but then of course, and then they have this particular personality trait that normally wouldn't have been there. Like with her, everything that moved was food.
And if it's anything like other ones, it will have a crazy growth spurt where it suddenly got all the nutrients it's been missing, and suddenly your 8-foot snake has turned into a 13-foot snake in like half a year.
You're like, why?
Like people say that berms and retics, especially when you get them young, they will grow faster than the weeds in the garden.
Oh,
And it's
absolutely.
true. Like every shed, it seems to put on another foot. Like even just seeing people's online, it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't personally do it. But I think the main point that I would make is when you're in a zoo, you're trained on these modes, etc. And that, and it's absolutely brilliant. But the reason you're trained is exactly what you're saying. You're dealing with either abused or non-socialized animals. And even when you go away from your exotics, well, they're all exotics because it's a zoo, but when you go for mammals and that, 90% of the mammals I see in zoos around me are like ex-circus animals and like ex-trafficked performing bears and stuff like that. And you imagine what these have gone
Very young.
through.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. They were saved at a very young age, and they're in some sort of rehabilitation. Or in some cases, there is, as Spider Mom says, it's sad, where the mother has been killed.
Yeah.
Some of the local wildlife, the mother has been killed, and you cannot, in Sweden, once they're humanized, you can't give them back to the wild, which is, I think, is safe. I think it's safer for the animal, and I think it's safer for the public because you don't want a large moose thinking it's okay to approach people. Hunters during the hunting season would kill it, unfortunately. But I mean, that's not if you're a hunter, it's food. Food is food. But you also don't want you don't want the animal to get anxious and then stomp somebody because somebody didn't have food on them. So, on the flip side, the animals becomes dangerous as well, because then the animal's used to getting fed, and then they're not going to expect to be foraging as much. So rehabilitation is a very tricky thing. So I leave that up to the experts. But with zoos here in Sweden, natural wildlife is not allowed. Oh, pardon me. Wildlife is not allowed to go back into the wild if it has been rescued at a very, very young age.
Because
Unless it's like a raptor or something that can actually instinctively survive. And I can't think of any raptor who wants to cuddle with a person. If you guys don't know what a raptor is just basically a very large bird, bird of prey, pretty much. Yeah, very gorgeous animals like your eagles. But yeah, no, it's unique, it's interesting. And with that's one thing I like. Oh, another thing, don't get me started on how people think zoos are the worst thing for animals. Um,
I think
I
people
think
need to change their perspective. They see
yes,
an animal that's clearly in a less than optimal condition, but when you look at the enclosure is the best thing it's probably seen in its entire life other than the wild. And people need to stop thinking that zoos take animals from the wild, because quite often zoos get animals from rescues. They will breed young and deliberately have as little to do with young as possible, sometimes even with endangered reptiles. And I believe there's even some conservation projects where they would ship eggs, etc., and basically have them ready to pop and put them in the wild, so they are going back into that system. And I'm probably not 100% correct because I don't know fully, but I do know that when people look at these zoos and they think, oh, that's a really fat anaconda, I mean, it could be that the zoo's overfeeding the anaconda, but oftentimes you've got to think this is probably someone's personal pet that's then been seized or neglected and has ended up here and is on some form of rehabilitation 9 times out of 10.
yeah, absolutely, yes. And that's the sad part. Uh, I hate to say it, but that is the exact sad part about being in a zoo. You have again with the choking. I'm so sorry about that. But one thing you have on one side is people thinking, "Oh, this is great," and those are the people we want to appeal to. But we also want to appeal to the people who think that we're abusing and neglecting these animals. Um, Most people don't understand that we are on a budget, and we've got these animals now. If you've taken care of your snakes, and you know how expensive it can get if they need medical treatment.
Yeah.
You also know how expensive it can get when you're trying to feed an animal that is basically 2 or 3 times bigger than a man. It's not like they, when you have a
It's not even
reset.
about the food. The food is the most cheap, affordable aspect of that animal's keeping. The real cost, and I'm sure you'll agree, would be
The
your
electricity.
your power on heating,
Yep,
lighting, and water
electricity.
system. Because
It's the electricity and it's
yeah,
the water. But for us also it's the food. Because when you've got an animal at a certain size, rats are not going to do it. You're looking at something as big as rabbits, and rabbits are not cheap. You're also
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at
I mean, I'm only at £4 a meal at the moment with my boa, so I've not reached that expensive aspect.
yeah, you reach a certain point, and then you're thinking of that 3 or 4 different times.
Mm.
Now, for a zoo, power is the most expensive thing. Then comes the vet bill. Then comes the person that you're paying to take care of the animal, the trainer and the trainee,
Mm.
because of all of the insurances that have to go into that. Then you have to pay for the insurance for the animal. We haven't even gotten to the building cost yet.
Yeah.
So that's what most people don't understand. Zoos are on an extremely painfully tight budget. There is no money making when you have a zoo. You have to appeal to nonprofits almost all of the time, and you have to deal with donations. People coming and paying for the zoo, that doesn't even cover the cost. It doesn't even scratch the surface. It is the organizations, the nonprofit organizations that donate to the zoos that keep the zoos alive.
And that's
Uh,
why you've got to remember when you go to a zoo and you see a cuddly toy for 20 quid, it's
exactly,
not
exactly.
20 quid because you're paying for the toy.
You pay
You're
for the care.
paying the support for the actual keeping the animals fed and that. And I think
Exactly.
people need to start reading the plaques at zoos, because I know it's the most boring bit, and you don't want to sit there and read a massive 5 paragraph plaque on the animal, but quite often they will have like a backstory on the animal that's in the enclosure. And it really opens your eyes sometimes when you read these stories and you can
Or
see
if
how
you're
far
like,
this animal's come.
or if you're like in Sweden, we just have people who know the story, and the caretakers are almost always around. And so
Mm,
if they see a large group of people coming, or if you've made a reservation because you have a large group, most zoos will send somebody to be more act as a kind of a makeshift tour guide. The zookeepers know exactly everything about that animal. There isn't see, that's the thing. I was part of the herpetology and the entomology department. So all of the displays for the arachnids, the insects, the bees, all of them was what I cleaned and took care of. I also helped out with the herpetology department, which meant that I was also under the training and care of, you guessed it, the guys taking care of all of the reptiles and amphibians. Um, and so you had to be prepared to be able to answer any question in that area. And you had to appeal to, I hate to say this, but you had to appeal to the people, the bleeding hearts. You had to appeal to them, because those are the guys that are going to buy those toys. Those are the guys that are going to be putting a little bit extra cash in the donation boxes. Those are the guys that are going to be taking the pictures and telling everybody about their experience to get more people to come. So you absolutely had to appeal to them. So you had to know the background and knowledge of all of the animals. Now, the frog exhibit with us, that wasn't a rescue. That was actually imported for a breeding program.
mhm,
And of course, you had to tell the people the importance of breeding in house and being able to help out with the populations. You had to be able to say, hey, look, yes, we know we're doing captive bred, but would you rather us do captive bred than having people poach illegally, taking animals out of the wild and selling them under the worst conditions imaginable? And then to help promote the story, you would be able to share some of the things that you've learned from your trainer, as a trainee, of course. Now, people are like, well, people that work at zoos, they make so much money. No, no, we don't. 9 times out of 10, if you're not part of the managing department, if you're not part of the full time group, you had a second job. You were
My
doing it because you love the animals. You didn't do it because you were making money.
Yeah, my job searching sprung up an apprenticeship of not Chester Zoo, that'd be a bit far away from me. Colchester Zoo over in Essex, and it was £4.73 an hour or something like that for the apprenticeship, and I think it said that the final rate was, pretty much on your minimum wage.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not, close to being any kind of, well, it's like teaching. You don't do it because you want to earn money. You do it because it's your passion. It's
Yep.
your humanity, and it's built into you. You're not there for money. You're there for the experience and the interactions with the animals or the children. You know.
Oh, absolutely. And I just read where Tony Webb said he would be surprised at how many animals at zoos are brought from shops. Absolutely. Um, and that's ill on the shop. That's very ill practice on the shop. To be honest, you don't go and sell an animal to an inexperienced keeper. You don't go and sell a Nile monitor to somebody who's never dealt with monitors before.
Mm.
Um, Speaking of monitors, I have an interesting story with that one. Believe it or not, monitors, when you have a Nile monitor, they get a hold of you, you're going to feel it, and they shake you like a dog, to the point the shaking does more damage than the actual bite. And if you're in any type of zoo, you notice that they have 2 to 3. And it's usually the even number, equivalent number. I believe it was, monitors are pretty, they can pretty much take care of themselves, either solitary or in a small group. We had a small pod, and of course, we were feeding, and something very bad happened. Very, very bad happened. Um, and I ended up being shooken like a rag doll. That was not a very fun experience. Just
Did
to
you
let you
get any
know.
kind of
Of course,
sepsis afterwards? So I know
no,
there's birds
actually,
out that
they
route.
couldn't. Their serrated jaws couldn't. The teeth couldn't get past my boot. See, when you work in a zoo, your outfit it is very fitted for the job that you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why you always see these steel toe boots with a heavy high top leather binding. And luckily, he didn't get a hold of the thigh or the calf. He got a hold of the ankle,
Mhm.
and which, by the way, is the reason why I had surgery. I was shaking so hard he snapped the tendon.
Wow.
But he just grabbed the one place that it was just like a freak area, because he grabbed the one place where the tendon was thin, small, and when he shook and pulled me off my feet, he just snapped it.
Now, is that um, instinct or is that just a lucky bite? Because that,
It
you
was
know,
just
monitors
I
are some of the
believe
most
it was a more of
intelligent
a
people.
he was aiming for the food that was dropped by accident near my feet.
Hmm.
If you look at monitors, we usually they're fed in one of three ways. If they're fed by hand, they're fed usually at a bucket and they're thrown at a distance, because you don't want them running up to you. You really
Yeah.
do not want these buggers running up to you. Um, or they're fed on a string at a distance, or the food is put in a large tray and it's put in there when the animal's not in there, and then when you leave, the animal can come in and they know exactly where that food is. So that it's usually one of three ways. And I ended up, being an idiot and being new. And luckily, I had experienced keepers with me. And I don't say luckily, because that was the thing. If you were a trainee, you had people with you. And so when you make stupid mistakes like I did, and that was completely my fault, by the way, then and that's because I let the animal get too close. And then when the food was dropped, because I trusted the animal, I didn't think, and that was the whole point. I didn't think that it could get so close and be so quick. It was a shock. It was a pure shock to see this huge animal move so fast. Because you always see, where TV, where you see the crocodile handlers and everybody with these large reptiles have like almost superhuman reflexes. They can play with them and do what they want with them. And I was started after that happened, I started to see shows about that. And because at the time Australia shows were starting to hit the mainstream at that time. And I'm thinking, oh wow, that's really cool. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, that took years of training after because there is no way that happened like, oh, I can do this overnight. No, it had to be years of training and working with, your supervisor. So yeah, that was like I said, it was just a really freak grab. I think they were more after the food, and I just happened to be in the way. And then of course, when they started shaking me, it triggered the rest to, oh, what's going on? I have to take care of this. Because their instincts finally kicked in.
Hmm.
And of course, I was surrounded by people who knew what they were doing, and they got the situation under control very, very quick. Um, and of course, I didn't have a septic bite, but they still took care of me as if I was going to. So I still was monitored for infection and given an antibiotic, a very strong antibiotic, to be honest. And and nothing came of it other than it snapped the ankle. I had to have surgery on the tendon. It wasn't like a major surgery. It wasn't like you know, oh, we had to take care of this. No, it wasn't anything like that. It was just very, very mild case of taking care of that. Um, and thinking back, was I stupid back then? Absolutely. I was 100% stupid because I didn't think. So you have to think when you take care of these animals. So it always makes me cringe when I see these beautiful animals, these very large monitors. And now my Nile monitor is not small.
No.
By no means. They're like the size of a medium dog. um, if you don't know what a Nile monitor or how big a Nile monitor gets, I would definitely Google size, and you see these people picking them up and stuff, and you know that's not good for them. But you can see the massive size on these animals, and they're beautiful
I've
animals.
always wanted a black throat.
You
Like
always want to.
my favorite of monitors anyway is the black throat monitor, and they have claws like velociraptors, and they are semi-arboreal.
Oh
So
wow!
not only can they rip you, they will rip you because they will try and climb you. But they are stunning, and if I was in an ideal world, I would have a room dedicated to a black throat monitor, and I would take it for walks in the summer because it's amazing. But I
I
don't
know.
live in an ideal world, and I don't think they should be in the hobby at all because, like you say, you're in a zoo with other people that know what they're doing, and that still happened. If you're in your bedroom with this big brute of a dinosaur and it's ripping you, and there's no one around, like, you've got to think about that. And that's why DWA is brilliant. But the issue with DWA is I don't think there are any Varanus, which are monitors genus, on there, and large constrictors aren't included. So, although the UK is stricter than Sweden in terms of venomous stuff, um, we're a lot more naive in the fact that we will let anyone pick up a baby Burmese python and let them deal with it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, like I said, we have you can buy through a third party sales on your retics, your large monitors and stuff like that. But then
But will that
it
person
comes
tell
to
you that the monitor will be finding a 4 foot vid for the whole life?
yeah.
Because
Well,
that's
the
the
thing
kind
is,
of thing you get in pet shops here.
yeah.
A
Uh,
Savannah monitor.
but the thing is, if you say which one was it? There was I forgot the name of the YouTuber, but they bought a monitor and it was supposed to be a certain type of monitor, but then it wasn't, and it happened to be I believe a black throat, and they were taking care of it completely wrong. Um, Now, mind you, my thing is if you're going to get a monitor, please do your research first and foremost. If you're going to get any type of animal, please do your research first and foremost. Go into depth. Don't be in a rush to buy it. Uh, I believe, come to monitors. I think Savannah monitor is one of the better beginners, even though they're quite large. Their attitude's also a little bit gnarly. I think that's just a thing with most monitors. Most monitors are very I own the area, bite me.
They are
Um,
the apex. You think of lions and mammals as the apex, but a lion can be taken down by a monitor as easily as a um, deer can be taken down by a lion. Because a
yeah, no,
monitor will bite it and then it will get sepsis and then it will die and then the monitor will track it across miles and miles and miles until it finds it and eats it as carrion. Because that's how monitors do it. They don't necessarily kill there and then. They will bite, know that the animal's not going to deal very
and
well with the bacteria in that, and then they will track it until they find it, even if it
yes,
takes 5 or
singular.
6 days.
That's a singular hunt. Unless they're in a group, when they're in a group, they're gonna tear you apart alive. These things will shake you until your joints come out of the place, and then they're gonna pull and pull and pull until it's ripped off. Nothing is worse than having your limbs ripped off while you're alive. They're not nice. They don't go for the throat. They don't. There's no quick kill. There's no eventually, you're just gonna pass out. You're never gonna feel anything. You're just gonna go to sleep, and then you're done. No, not with these guys. You're gonna feel it every hit, every step of the way. Um, and then after you die, they'll chew on you after chew on the carcass if they don't have to compete with anything else on the carcass. That is the problem. Monitors are, as you said, they're apex, and they they're pretty gnarly. But the thing is with a savannah, it's I believe if you're going to get into monitors, personally, I think savannah is one of the best because they are a hardy species. If you've done your research, the requirements are still high because it is a monitor. Monitors, one thing most people don't understand, monitors require a lot of care, a lot of care. And you have to
Wow.
take care of their nails. One thing that drives me nuts is when you see a pet monitor or a very large pet lizard in any way, shape, or form, and you see the longest nails ever. It's like, oh, please, for the love of God, take care of them. If you do not know how to take care of them, take them to a vet. Because what they'll do is they'll actually gas them, which can be expensive, and then they will trim the nails. They will take care of them. But what you should be doing is putting a surface in there that grinds down the nails as they go around. They are
Yeah.
meant for it because their nails will get longer and longer and longer. And if you've tried to walk around with long toenails and it's uncomfortable for you, think how painful it is for them. Oh,
It's not
just don't get me started on that one. That one just drives me nuts.
You know,
What?
you've got to trim your dog's nails. So
Oh,
your monitor is no different.
yeah, pretty much. Let's go into another song. We're getting a little bit of a serious talk, but we've got still some music left, and we're almost coming to a close to our podcast because we're almost to our first hour and a half. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next song is "I Am Changing" by Isaac Elliott.
Everything's fine. Wouldn't expect any more from this. The situation's in line with every story that I heard of the burning bliss, and I wait, trying to appreciate, and I wait, trying to evaluate. Was it something that I did? Was it something that I couldn't quite handle right? An invitation to a thrill, a growing comfort that somehow it will be alright. And I wait, trying to appreciate, and I wait, wanting to accommodate.
And we're back. Ellie, you're more than welcome to come on. Again, you're very much welcome to come on. I will share. You have to come on now. You've expressed that you want to come on. You're coming on. Oh my goodness, we have such a lovely crowd. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. As she was saying, she's like, I love how you just like add random songs in between. I'm like, well, it is a radio. It is a radio podcast. That's what we do here. We have a nice chit chat, like a radio with all of the commercials. So unfortunately, I can't put on the well-known songs that most people like. But I do try my best. And I did say I want to come on. You were thinking about it. You were thinking about coming on. So my question to you guys is: have you guys thought about getting a monitor? Ellie, the Bug Babies, says they've wanted a monitor. Yeah, no, I know how much care that goes into them, so I'm very much against owning one because, for one, I would never be able to give them what they need. I'm not going to donate an entire room to one. I live in an apartment, and second of all, they actually do need room to run. That is one thing. That's why you see when you walk into a zoo, you see this monitor enclosure. You see about 3 monitors, and it's just this huge area. with various different types of services. Everything from water, from a kind of a water trough to, and when I mean a trough, I'm talking about, an area for them to swim, all the way to a rock versus sand, as well as vegetated. So it depends on the type of monitor as well, but that's generally what you'll see. And the rock is to help wear down the claws. And of course, the areas allow them to run, assert themselves. And yeah, no, it's just it's interesting. And you'll see that the zookeepers are never really one on one with the animals, mainly because of they need more room than my bulldog. Yes, 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 they do.
The one monitor I would say could be kept ethically would be the Aki monitor or dwarf species, because their care is essentially the same on certain aspects as a bearded dragon, and their size is very similar to a bearded dragon. So as long as you give them enough height and you give them enough length, they cohab and work well in groups, and they're a very manageable little monitor. They have all the attitude of the big ones, but in a package that you can keep as a hobbyist.
I was gonna say, name one monitor to it, whether big or small, that they're like very timid. There is not a single one. They're like little angry lizards.
Akis
I
can be
love
quite personable. They can be quite lovely.
Really, really.
Yeah,
Because all the ones I've run
and
into, I
emerald
believe
tree
it's.
monitors as well.
What
They
about the
can be
king?
quite good.
What about the dwarf king monitor out of Australia?
Uh, can't say I've heard of that one.
They're very small, but they're like little angry babies. I love them to death. Yeah, no, I think monitors are great. Like I said, in a zoo, especially the much larger species, unless you, of course, you're a rescue, and then you're doing everything you can for that animal. I know personally, there's a rescue in a different country. I want to say it's Venezuela. Um, but anyways, I've read it where they've actually given entire swimming pools, and do monthly cleanup on the swimming pools just for this animal. I believe it might be the crocodile monitor,
My
but
question would be, are um, how to put this? I know in the UK people can call themselves a rescue, but oftentimes not really hit the mark.
here you have
Um,
to be government regulated if you're a
yeah,
rescue.
and my question would be, is there a limit to the amount that you can keep, or do they allocate through government legislation a certain amount of square footage per species? So if you've got a building that's 3,000 square foot and you've got 2,500 square foot of usable space, would you then be limited to say 5 Burmese pythons and one monitor, or hundreds of corn snakes, 3 monitors and one Burmese python, for example? Like,
It
is it
depends.
very, very regulated in the way that they
Yeah,
have to not just be professionally trained, but have the right 100% perfect
here
care?
here they actually have to prove that you've been to a university to be able to care for said animals.
Mhm.
Unless you're grandfathered in from the old laws, which meant that you have tons of experience. So if I know a gentleman who has never gone to the university for herpetology type of degree, but he has, I think it's like 15 or 20 years plus experience. And then, so he's able to handle snakes. And now, because it's a rescue, he cannot take in a certain degree of uh, deadly animals. If you say he can't take care of a taipan, but he can take care of a basically a rattler, because of the venom
Mhm.
is a certain degree. Um, and so it becomes classes by then, and then they're just going off the sites, what the sites say. Uh, Ellie asked me if I had ever worked with sun skinks. No, I've not worked with the skinks. That was a different person. Believe it or not, we do have skinks in our zoos. But our skinks, yeah, no, I really didn't. But I had worked with the legless lizards, if that helps. Uh, I love legless lizards. They're just a whole different ball game and really fun.
Would that be the shelter P6?
To be honest, I don't remember. But we did have a lot of sand for them, so they can
Mhm.
move around. So, but then we also had to have a feeding area because we didn't want them to eat around the sand. We didn't want them to digest the sand. So, to be honest, I couldn't tell you. And then there's that awkward silence. No, the ones I'm talking about were very long,
Yeah.
and of course, we also had to give them, like I said, a sanded area for them to sunbathe and bury themselves, and to regulate
Were
themselves.
they on a diet of grain-free dog food type
Oh,
stuff?
we didn't do we did natural. These guys ate basically insects as well as some plant matter.
Oh, okay. They sound
Uh,
like the European legless lizards, but
it could have been, I don't know.
there's a few different species. The ones I'm talking about are quite a well, they kind of look like snakes. So they're like a greeny kind of color. They've got a head like a skink, and they're very rigid. They're not as maneuverable as a snake. And when you would hold one, they would want to be more outstretched. Some legless lizards are um, more colourful, but they're also quite small. So it sounds like you were dealing with shelter P6, and I think
Uh,
they're
these guys
incredible
were
animals.
these guys were kind of more of a medium size, not really big. But you did keep them. You weren't allowed to really handle them because of the fact that you didn't want to bend them wrong. Um,
Yeah.
and on top of that, they were, like I said, they did eat some green plant matter, but the mainly insects was the main
Hmm.
diet, and of course. So I only know of the slow worm. No, so I just know that. I think they had a dark mouth, to be honest. Like I said, it's been years since I've actually handled them, so taken care of them anyways. My thing was it was the larger animals, the ones that I was mainly assigned to, and also of course the insect arachnid area, the arthropod area as well. We had, believe it or not, arthropods also include some sea life, which was unique. That was more of the aquarium side of. uh, Put it this way: when the aquarium would come up with overrun by some certain species, before they would have to actually start sifting things out and taking care of their populations, they would actually give us some for to draw in more people, which was fine because it was basically ran by the same group of people. Um, so they weren't really losing money; they were just moving animals. And it was just interesting, but I really tried to stay away from that as much as possible. I really focused on the ants. We had I think it's actually still there, to be honest. It was a green leaf colony, or an ant leaf colony. I can't remember the scientific term. Do not ask me that one. And it basically ran the entire length of the uh, uh, basically the herpetology, the herp enclosure, the herp place.
Hmm.
Um, and it was basically everywhere you looked, there was a water trough for them because they couldn't cross the water. It was moving constantly. It gave great ambient sound, but it was basically a water barrier, so they didn't get out. And it was pretty massive. And then you would have to sometimes go in there and you have to smoke, and then actually have to clean out and take care of the nest, which was kind of not something I really liked doing. I felt really bad about it, but it was one
That's
of the
really
ways
interesting.
we had to control the size of the colony. If it got too big, then the ants would get sick, and then they would start dying off. If they weren't getting enough food to try and control the size, then they would get sick and then they would die. It was a very delicate balance. And so what you would have to do is you have to go in there and you have to basically do a physical culling of these animals. And that was to help maintain basically a certain size, and it was to help maintain the health, basically the healthy part of the colony, because they would never get that big in the wild. What they would do is because they had to deal with elements, they had to deal with predators, they had to deal with things that we cannot ethically introduce, because here in Sweden, you're not even allowed to live feed any of the animals. Except for like insect to insect, that's fine. But what you're not allowed to do is you cannot feed a rat, you cannot feed a mouse, you cannot feed a rabbit, you can't feed any of the live animals because they believe it's suffering. So you have to basically take care of them humanely and then be able to feed them, which was fine because, if you had a rabbit that was frozen, you would just thaw it out and then heat it up with pretty much an air dryer and wiggle it. And the snake didn't care. Or the monitor didn't care, or the whatever we were feeding at the time did not care, as long as they were getting fed. And for spiders, the teas, as you were saying, and all that, you had to take care of them like you would if you were insects. That was a whole different story. Insects didn't have the same protection laws because you're not going to be able to feed a pre-kill on a regular basis that had been frozen and then thawed to a spider. It's just, because then the spider suffers. It's an unethical practice for the spider. So, but for the frogs and stuff, yeah, if we had bullfrogs, we actually had a set of American bullfrogs before we had to give them away. Because they're not allowed not allowed here in Sweden, because they can become very invasive. If you guys don't know how quick bullfrogs can take a hold of an entire pond, it can pretty much be overnight. It's gnarly. They populate so quickly, and there's really no natural predator here in Sweden for them. So you're not really allowed to have them. And of course, when it's seized, these animals became illegal, and the zoo took them in. Because rescues, if you're a government-run rescue, you're not allowed to have illegal animals either, because you can't give them away. But anyways, we took them then, and we had to thaw the mice. Once in a while, you had to thaw pinkies and feed them to the frogs, because that's part of their diet. And yeah, that was interesting. I could just say it was just a real unique experience, and I didn't quite like it. So bullfrogs came immediately off my list. I see Ellie said that she can't do ants. I'm sorry. Ants are great, but the problem with ants is if they get out and they become invasive of the area, or if they here in Sweden, you're not really allowed to take animals from the wild and keep as pets, and that's including ant colonies. You're not really allowed to do that. Unless it is one of our endangered species and you're part of a breeding program, which is really easy to actually apply for. And then that's a whole different road that I'm not really too familiar with. If I can find somebody who knows all about that, that'd be great. I'd love to have them on the show, but I can't find anybody at the moment. Ants are amazing creatures. Yes. Have you ever been bitten by ants? Oh, absolutely. We had a fire colony that had been confiscated, and absolutely did I get eaten up by them. So yeah, I don't recommend it. Plus, we have what we call I hate to say this, but we call it a pissant. And a pissant is something that throws acid. It's very bitter. It's very gnarly smelling, and it burns. It actually burns, but the bites are nasty. It does not feel good at all. Feels like your legs are on fire.
Kind of linking into the ants.
Huh?
Kind of linking into the ants and the overpopulation. I've recently split my giant orange Lavis colony of isopods, and I've made a second smaller colony that I am using to breed and hopefully make some live food for my bearded dragon. So I'll change the diet ever so slightly of the isopods, and then I'll be able to introduce that into the mix of standard feeders as well. And that
Nice.
keeps my isopods healthy, and it gives my bearded dragon food.
Nice. But that I believe beardies eat a lot of ants. All right, so I'm going to introduce one more song. We're gonna then after that we'll wrap up the conversation. Is that okay with you? So we're almost out of
great.
time. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next song coming up is "Animal."
Unused, sometimes left alone in the heat of the night. Every time and I try to play, got nothing but my soul to blame. Well, you said it's all done. Something tells me I should leave the town. Want to have you one more time. Play your tricks on my worried mind. Long ago, you were mine. Bye bye, baby. Out of the corner, down in the drain. I need a miracle to make it go away. I wanna tell you, I'm out of love. Somebody help me, I just wanna be your animal. Oh. I was born in a cage. My own mama kinda had her own ways. So fine, so pure. I can't live that right anymore. I just wanna have some more. You can't give me what I need for sure. I got nothing left to lose. Bye, my baby. Out on the corner, down in the train. I need a miracle to make it go away. I wanna tell you, I'm out of love. Somebody help me, I just wanna be your animal. Out on the corner, down in the train. I need a miracle to make it go away. I wanna tell you, I'm out of love. Somebody help me, I just wanna be your
And we're back. We're going to wrap things up. Oh. She keeps going off the salad. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about everything and everything, anything and everything under the sun. It is Comfy Pants Wednesday, Exotics Talk, where we talk about random exotics stuff, personal experiences, caretaking, thoughts. If there's any subject you'd like to hear on our next subject or next week's subject on Exotics Talk or Comfy Pants Wednesday, more than welcome to suggest them. I don't mind. I have an Instagram. Go ahead and leave your suggestions on the said Instagram. Sorry, I don't do Facebook. I have an affinity against Facebook. So apparently Ellie is scared they're going to make their beauty fat. Nah, I could never do that. Oh, beardies are cute. Oh, I can't speak today. Oh my gosh. Good night, everybody. I'm done. No, I'm just kidding.
The best way to make sure your beardie doesn't get fat is to, if it's only really taking insects and it's above about a year and a half, really try and force some salad on it. And it will go on hunger strike until it's hungry, and then it will eat some salad, and it can help to try and change them, because in the wild they'll naturally change their um, diet to a more plant-based diet, so it actually helps keep them healthy. But the biggest thing you can do is
Exercise?
yeah, just exercise. Give it enough room to run, and basically treat it like a monitor of sorts. But also, beardies are personable enough that if you've got one that will take handling can be absolutely brilliant for a beardie. And in the summer, take it outside, get like a covered playpen. You can get soft playpens that are kind of like for rabbits. Some people will put their beardie in that, and as long as it's warm enough outside, it's quite good to give them that extra enrichment. But just keep an eye and make sure they're not eating insects or anything that could have like the parasite load of being outside. So you've still got to
Or
be careful about it,
an
but it can be
insect
good.
that's been touched by by a pesticide of some sort. Here in
Yeah,
Sweden, you're really not allowed to use pesticides outside. You're more That's more regulated. That's really extremely regulated, to be honest. Um, but you never know what kind of things come from the house to outside. Ophi's Spider Verse says she's got to run. Take care, Ophi. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Love you, and I hope to see you this coming Friday. Stefan Harop says they love the beardies. Again, I've got a special heart. I got a special place for the beardies as well. I think they're cute and adorable and everything else that goes along with them. Unfortunately, I have cats, so I refuse to own one just for the fear of them actually getting out and something way bad happening. Exercise, she don't stop. She thinks she can fly. And she's a crazy. She's about 9 months old. I think it's just a healthy young diet at that point. I think it's because they're so active at that point. Um, but I think, was it 18 months, 19 months, something like that, you start cutting down because it
yeah.
starts
For
slowing
now, you
down.
want to be about 80% insect feeders, 20% veg. You probably won't touch the veg, but don't worry too much. And feed, I believe it's about 10 to 20 crickets of appropriate size for the size of the beardie. But obviously, don't take that like you see online, etc. Always think about how your bearded dragon reacts and what you feel would be a sensible amount. And if you notice your beardie starts looking a bit pancaked or a bit chubby, you can always just reduce that and gradually work him back into health. But a 9 month beardie will have such a fast metabolism, you probably won't ever get it chubby.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, honestly, I don't. I have to agree with that one. I don't think that. Like I said, it's 19th month mark. When they start slowing down, so you slow down on the food pace a little bit.
Yeah. And they will actively refuse food in that period as well. Mine definitely did. So um, it would not be as oriented on, oh, it's feeding time, I'm going to eat all of this. And obviously, you get the exceptions, but they will somewhat self regulate themselves, in my experience.
No, my question is, I can't remember which one it was, which lizard it was, but somebody was feeding cooked quail egg with a bunch of other mush. Which one was that? Was that the iguana? Oh gosh, I
Possible.
can't remember. Um, but yeah, speaking of iguanas, by the way, that is the one lizard I do not recommend anybody keeping as a pet unless you can meet literally all of the requirements because they're like the glass cannons. They have these great big bursts of attitude if they're not socialized right, and
Horrible
then on
quail.
top of that, on top of that, they require so much care. So if anybody's thinking about getting a lizard, please stay away from the iguanas. Um,
If you want an iguana, there is a dwarf species. I believe it's called the spiny-tailed iguana. It stays smaller, and it might be an option for someone that wants to have that genus in their collection, but in a more manageable way. You're still going to have everything that Cracks has said with the care, etc., but it won't get 6 foot plus, and
Yeah,
its
no.
tail won't do quite as much damage when it decides it's going to whip you.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, this is what I. Oh, cannot I tell you. That's one thing about Sweden. Honestly, I don't think I've ever really seen iguana in Sweden. I don't think it's allowed, to be honest. Um, it's just it's so it's just it's what I don't I lost words on it because it's just it takes so much care. Now I do know that iguanas are legal in the U.S. I do know that there's other parts of the world that iguanas are legal for. So know what you're getting into when you're getting into an iguana. But yeah, there was one lizard that this guy was feeding on a very healthy diet, honestly, and was feeding cooked egg, which annoyed me because lizard stomachs are not made to handle that kind of heavy, dense food. It's basically meant that they eat eggs raw. But that was about the only thing that annoyed me, and I can't remember which lizard it was. But yes, I believe lizards and eggs go hand in hand, unless of course it's a beardy. Beardies require a completely different type of diet. Um, we can get them in Wales, but they're hard to. They can be hard work and dangerous. Yes, 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 they can.
I mean, it's amazing to see in the wild when an iguana makes its own little fire and it has its pot going and it's just poaching your eggs. It's really a spectacle.
You think just a little bit? That's like that's like the bear that comes to the picnic, sits down with you, and asks for a cup of tea. Um, yeah, no, it's just if you guys don't know who the bear reference is, then I'm way too old, and you guys are way too young. Does anybody remember the cartoon? I'm waiting for Spider Mom. I'm hoping Spider Mom remembers, because if
I'm
not, then
pretty sure I'm just within the bracket. Whether that's through my parents or not, I couldn't tell you, but I've got an image in my head. And I'm 22.
No, that's it's the friendly bear that comes and steals the picnic baskets and talks. Spider Mom does. Okay, good. At least now I don't feel so bad. What cartoon?
Is it Goji Bear or something like that?
Oh gosh, it's oh gosh, now I had it at the tip of my tongue. Now I can't remember. Oh, the bear that steals picnic baskets. Spider Mom, help me out. I'm drowning.
Did he have a little accomplice called Boo Boo or
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, when I put it in there, the cartoon pops up, but the name doesn't. Yogi. It was a Yogi Bear.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
See,
Oh,
I'm
I
not that
know.
young. I know that.
Yes, we're talking about the Yogi Bear. But yeah, you were talking about how iguanas steal eggs and cook them over a pot and over an open fire, and Boo Boo. Yes. Yes, thank you. It was Boo Boo and Yogi. Thank you very much. I completely, for some reason, I had it in my head, and then somebody asked me the name, and it just went out into space. Oh, I had those moments. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. I am Cracks, your host, and you're on the Exotics Radio Podcast. It is Comfy Pants Wednesday, Exotics Talk with Scott's Animal Adventures. Scott, you want to promote yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So obviously, thank you everyone for coming. If you'd like to have a look at my channel, I do exotics, based videos. So I'm mainly doing isopods and millipedes and reptiles, and I'd just like you to come along, have a look, see if you enjoy it, and if you do, like and subscribe. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I've started up a TikTok. It's more light-hearted, more fun and playful. So if if you're on TikTok and you just want a little bit of exotics in with your funny viral videos, then have a look at that as well. Be a few more light-hearted videos and fun bits like that. So yeah, and all under this Scott's Animal Adventures name. If it's a platform where you can't have spaces in the tag, then it will have underlines between the letters.
I just want to say thank you, Ellie. She goes, "Crack, you're not old." I don't know if she's being facetious or if she actually believes that. Speaking of that, speaking of old and age, my birthday's coming up. I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's the my birthday's February 29th, but there's no February 29th this year, so it's gonna be March 1st, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. Probably celebrate with you guys. Have a big birthday bash on YouTube. Not exactly sure what to do, but yeah. So any more questions before we wrap things up? Play one last song and get off the channel. So time is of the essence. I have to keep my hours short. I can't do the 2 and 3 hour short shows anymore, unless it's on Friday. Friday is the only one that's going to be regulated down to 3 hours. No more 4-hour podcast, because my hours are unfortunately limited at this time. I'm getting old. Mine's in April. I'm getting old. No, you're not getting old. Ellie, you're quite young. But since nobody has any questions, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming on the show and hanging out with the exotic stock. I'd love to have you on next Wednesday. Kind of make you a co-host, if that's all right with you. You don't have to make it to everyone, because I know I don't want to stress you out, but you're always welcome to come on every Wednesday and give me your thoughts on whatever the topic is. And there's that awkward silence as I give him a compliment.
Thank you. No, sorry. I had to mute my mic. I was listening to my mum. She knocked on the door. Sorry about
that. Not a problem. No problem.
But no, I'd like to say thank you to everyone as well, just quickly.
Yeah. So anyways, we've got one last song. It is called Bright Nights by Van Syke.
Help me to unwind and Sing for me sweet lullabies. Bright nights, everlasting dark someday.